all the way up to NFL Week 14. We have Erik from ETOF21 Sports, who's back with us this week. Big thanks to Chase, the Wolf of Oaklawn, who Erik knows very well. Chase hung out with us, talked some football. He had a nice week last week, too. Erik, we have a good start to the week this week, a really good Thursday night game. A lot of these Thursday night games are kind of ugly. We don't always get the best games out there. This week, not the case. Your Detroit Lions, the current Super Bowl favorite, host the Green Bay Packers. We take a look at the betting lines here over at Bet Online. And Erik, your Lions are the deserving favorite right now, but they're starting to get really banged up, especially on the defensive side, losing a lot. I mean, you're based on the DVOA metrics. The Lions are number one overall. They rank third in offense and second in defense, which is incredible balance for a team through 13 weeks of the season. You just hope now with some of the big injuries you have on the defensive side, do you have the same guys back there, that have been through a lot of the year? How do you feel about this matchup and just kind of overall about some of the injuries you're dealing with?
I love my Lions, but I gave this one out on my show on Tuesday. Packers here plus 3.5. You mentioned the defensive side of the ball. Hutchinson, Alonze, Rodriguez, Rashaw, all in the IR, plus you're missing 3 other defensive starters. And Carlton Davis is going to be very limited. They're insanely banged up. They're signing players left and right from teams' practice squad or the couch. I know people are pumped up for Alexander and Adams, but it's 2024. These guys aren't what they used to be. There's a reason why Adams was sitting on a couch and Alexander was on the Broncos practice squad.
Yeah.
Now the defense has been overachieving since Hutchinson has gone out.
Yeah.
But I just think this is a bad spot. And when we kind of look at it, I just put out my DFS article right now. And one of the main things in it was I'm using Josh Jacobs in my captain spot. When we look at it, they're not going to have DJ Reader, Leve Okunzwright, who are 2 of their top 3 defensive linemen defending the run, and Malcolm Rodriguez is their best linebacker per PFF defending the run. I think this is going to be a big Josh Jacobs game. I think they're going to be able to move the ball on them in the in the passing game, in the running game. When we kind of look at it, LaFleur 55-40 ATS in his career, 58% as a dog, 20-11, 67% road dog. 16-7, 70%. When you look at his history on short rest, which is, this isn't short rest because they do it a whole week because they did play on last Thursday. My bad. When you look at the box score last time these two teams played, Packers won the box score. They completely dominated that game. Should have won. Probably should have covered. Outgaining the Lions by 200 yards, 1.9 yards more per play, more passing yards, more rushing yards. The difference, a special teams TV and a Love INT. I'm really worried about the Lions secondary here. They allow the 25th most passing yards per game. Arnold, PFF graded nickel corner 107th. Robertson graded 91. I think they're going to struggle depending, especially if Davis leaves that game early, even though Romeo Doubs is out tonight. Packers are 12 DVOA defending the run, allowing the 8th fewest yards. I think they're going to be able to limit Gibbs, limit Montgomery. I think this is where we're going to see these injuries from the Lions just start to stockpile up. Little worried about my boys.
Because it started to happen at the end of the game last week too, right, Erik? Where we saw it on Thanksgiving, where it's not necessarily the first drive or the second drive. It's into the second half when you just don't have the bodies anymore and you start to wear down. And in particular, that's where a guy like Jacobs will really hurt.
Yep. And I think, how can I word this? I just think this is the good spot.
It is. Packers are playing well. They want to get it back against a big opponent. It's a divisional game. There's a lot of things that just point to a close game here. And if you can get more than the field goal, I think the Packers feel like the spot. They come off a really impressive game defensively. They made Tua look really bad. 5 players earned at least 3 quarterback pressures. 4 had a sack in the game. They have yet to allow 20 points in 3 games since the bye, so they've made some really nice adjustments. It just feels like a nice Packers spot here against the Lions. So big game in the NFC on Thursday Night Football. Erik, we move to the Kirk Cousins revenge game here. This is the Falcons against the Vikings. The Vikings are a 5.5-point favorite in this one, hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Last week, Cousins was so bad. There were two games. I feel like you were probably we didn't talk last week about the games, but I feel like you were probably on the side. The two games that if you bet last week and you lost, you're probably kicking yourself were the Falcons against the Chargers, because the Falcons defense actually played pretty well. They went into the red zone 4 times. They only got 10 points. That was the key. They dominated the time of possession by 12 minutes. They had 350 yards of offense. Bijan had over 100 yards, but they only had 13 points because of the 4 interceptions from Cousins. One of them was a pick 6. Koo missed a field goal. In the last few games, Cousins has a 0-6 touchdown to interception rating over his last 3 outings. He's been just miserable. Does this game get him a little pickup? Now that they're tied in the division with Tampa, the thing about Minnesota, Eric, they've been impressive. They've been winning, and our perspective on them has changed because before the season, we probably thought they weren't going to be a great team. Now we kind of treat them like a great team, so a lot of times we're trying to beat them, but they've been good. They've been getting the job done. This still feels like a lot for them, right? Like 5.5. I'm hemming and hawing either way. Do you have a strong opinion here? Does Cousins come home with the revenge game ready to rock?
How will Cousins face the pressure? He leads the he leads the NFL in interceptions thrown against pressure. PFF has the Falcons as the 18th best offensive line blocking. Are they going to be able to block this Brian Flores defensive scheme, which is going to bring pressure and make Cousins uncomfortable? Cousins literally has 0 zip on the ball, can't get the ball downfield to Pitts. London's in the slot now because of his lack of arm strength. Also, another thing that I really don't understand is why don't the Falcons give the ball to Bijan Robinson? Last year, they didn't do it. Even this year, they're still using Algier. When you watch the game, they got up the offense looked their best when they given it to Bijan. Then they just give it to Algier for no reason. I don't understand the concept there. Do we trust Sam Darnold to win with margin? Sam Darnold has struggled with pressure, but the Falcons create the least amount of pressure
up until last week. And so is that more of like a Chargers thing, right? Because me too, because it's happened for them a couple weeks in a row. And so I think I completely agree with you, because the Falcons were bad at pressure. They were one of the worst teams. I think they only had 10 sacks coming into last week, and then they got 5.
Yeah. And then Falcons defense, 22nd DVOA, but more importantly, 23rd DVOA against the pass, 21st DVOA defending wide receiver ones. Are they going to stop Jefferson? There's always the term, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Jefferson didn't have a good game. Really limited against the Cards last week. And the Falcons gave up 116 to Ladd McConkey, who left the game early. I think this is going to be a heavy Justin Jefferson game. Vikings are coming off a game against the Cards where they literally had no business covering. The Falcons are coming off a game where they played one of their worst of the season. So, I mean, in terms of buying low, selling high, this is kind of
the Falcon side. Absolutely, right.
Other than the dog getting 3.5 or more, 59%. On the road, 3.5 or more, 61%. Wade, who was on my show on Tuesday, this was one of his bets. I don't know if I can get there yet, though.
Because I'm still nervous about Cousins' mobility. Because honestly, that's what's really scary here. This stat was the one that jumped out to me. He has 20, so dead last in the league with 20 dropbacks from outside the pocket. Then the second next on the list is Tua with 38, and Tua's missed 4 starts.
Yeah,
he just can't move. And so when you, just like what you're saying, like, I'm not going to go and lay the number with Minnesota. No way. I can't, I'm still debating if I can get there on the Falcons side. Like, I might have gotten there more with Penix, just because Penix mobility wise could, like, if he had like a start, it would be a tough spot for him to have his first start against this Brian Flores team. That's why, like, getting that kind of like action, but it feels like you said the buy low spot on the Falcons, but I mean,
maybe I'll get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I might, especially if this gets up to 6.5.
But this isn't like a game I'm like, oh shit, I gotta.
I'm not dying to go get it either.
I mean, the interesting thing is, DraftKings has these things who will have the most passing yards. I almost hit one last week with Mike Evans. I was a yard away from it. Maybe throw like a little money on Kirk Cousins to have the most.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Like that. But
I agree.
From the sides, look, there's nothing I'm rushing to bet right now.
No, me neither. One stat I wanted to mention, because last week was another one of those games where that's probably a game the Vikings lose. They got outgained. They went 1 of 8 on third down. But give O'Connell a lot of credit, and Darnold too, because I still don't think, and I know you agree, like, I don't think Sam Darnold is going to win you a Super Bowl. But this is a team that we didn't think, nobody thought was going to be very good. Who knew if Sam Darnold was even going to be able to be a starter for more than a few weeks based on what he had done? O'Connell's a fantastic coach. Sam was 0-23 in his career when he had been trailing by 13 points in a game. That was the first time in his entire career he'd ever come back. And some of that's him, and it's just the confidence now you're on a team with a good defense. And O'Connell, I'm sure, as the coach, comes to him and says, you know what, Sam? You don't have to be like the savior franchise guy for this team like you were for the Jets and other spots. Come in here, let the defense do their job, make a few plays. You got Jefferson, you got Jones, you got these weapons that you can lean on, and you still have the ability to make plays. I think for Sam and for these guys like that, we're seeing with Bryce Young playing better. It's just you struggle, you lose your confidence, you're not well coached, you're not well prepared, and then it can go. And when you get a really good coach that puts you in a spot, one of the things in talking with you the last few years, man, offensive line and coaching staffs are things that, like, I don't think enough people put into give enough stock with how much they can flip a team around. And we see O'Connell's a really good coach, just not sure on this game as we go back and forth. Saints Giants. This one's an ugly game here. Oh. Saints had an opportunity last week to kind of keep themselves sneakily in the playoff race. But
that was brutal. I know.
Me too. 3, that was another one, right?
Like, they for sure were probably going to go for the win.
Well, in the first half, they should have been up by more than 6. The Rams could not do anything in the first half at all. It was the only time, other than the Super Bowl, in McVay's career where he got shut out in the first half of a game.
Yeah, it was brutal, man. Like, it was absolutely brutal. It was, and I had one of those weeks where I had Saturday, I had, oh my God, A&M plus the points, and they got all the way down to the 1 and couldn't score. Sunday, I had the Saints that we're just talking about, and then Monday I had the Browns. So I had 3.
Those are some bad
3
ones.
3 days in a row
of just you're on the right side, and you get beat. Those are the ones that's like
what the F is going on? But
so we got Locke again here, right, for the Giants.
Yeah, they announced that Locke is going to be the starter here. In terms of this game, I really think that people are going to be looking to go in different directions when they put together their DFS lineups. And I really think Tracy and Kamara are going to be a little under-owned because of that. When we just kind of step back and look at it, Saints are 32nd DVOA and PFF defending the run, allowing 136 yards per game, 26th most in the league. When you look at the last 5 running backs that they have played, Williams 107, Chubb 50, Bijan Robinson 116, Chuba Hubbard 72, and J.K. Dobbins 57. So these rushers against them are getting some run. I was hoping to get Tyrone Tracy's total at 59.5 or better. It came out at 59.5, so I just put that one in. So I'll be on Tyrone Tracy here. I think I'm going to use him in DFS as well. Flip side, the Giants, 20th DVOA defending the run, but PFM has them as the 15th defending the run. But they still, with no Lawrence, you look at it, they are giving up stuff in the rushing game. I was going to look at Kamara. His rushing total is 81. My worry with Tracy, though, are the Saints going to load the box? I don't think they're going to do that. I think Tracy is still going to be able to get his. Do we trust Carr winning with margin? He's 36% ATS as a dog. As a road dog, he's 24%. ATS. Flip side, do we trust Locke? Are we going to throw away the Thursday game because literally the day before he just figured out he was starting? Now he has extended 10 days to get ready. I don't know.
And I mean, he was getting crushed in that game too. Like, he didn't have a lot of time. He was getting hit and sacked repeatedly. 13 quarterback hits, 6 quarterback sacks. And man, like, I don't know. Do you have an opinion on the side here either way?
Like, normally what I like to do here is I like to
play the dog.
Just play the dog because
you just don't trust the Saints on the road like that with more than a field goal.
I want nothing to do with this game except for Tracy over 59.5.
I could see this being a sneaky DFS game too. The defense for the Giants, they have not had an interception since week 1. That's a record. It's like your defense can't get an interception at all on accident.
Is like there's certain teams I feel like just a tweak here, tweak there are lined up to have success. When we look at the Giants and their defensive front,
they're not that far away.
If they can figure out their offensive line and their quarterback position, this could be a team we can get behind. But again, and I did talk about this on your show when we did the preview. I think this team is just wasting this year and next year and trying to get Archie.
Yeah. 7 straight losses, 8-21 since the start of last season. That's coming back from the playoff where they had won a playoff game. So just couldn't take that step forward. Move to the next game. Ugly hit last week. So Lawrence looks like he's done.
So before you, did you hear? I have 2 things to say on this before you start.
Yeah.
Before you set everything up. Number 1, D'Amico Ryan. I want to like you, but you're a fucking moron.
I didn't hear what he said.
He said that it escalated because the Jags players overreacted. This is where, like, I have my NFL media credential. This is where I wish I was there and I could ask the follow-up question. How would you expect your team to react if that was
happened to your quarterback, your franchise player?
I mean, come on.
That was nasty. And that guy had done it the week before. He did it to Caleb earlier in the year. And then afterwards, he posted like a Joker meme online. It just like doesn't even get it. That I completely agree with you.
It's just, and that was awful. And then I don't know what's going on with the Jags. Why didn't you there's all these rumors that Trevor Lawrence needed surgery, gets concussed. He's out now. They put him on IR. Now he's going to have the surgery. Like, why didn't you just do the surgery 2 weeks
before? You knew you were already done a couple weeks ago.
I mentioned the 2 teams when they play bad. When we look at teams with a winning percentage of 250 or less when they play each other, the favorite is 41.2% ATS when it's a home favorite 39.1% ATS. So that brings the question, do we trust Mac Jones on the road to move the ball against the Titans defense, which I don't know. I don't know if you can do that, man. And when we look at the Titans, this is a team I've been burned on a lot before. I hit them 2 weeks ago. When they beat the Texans, I was on them. I was able to get them live because they started so bad. I got them live 29.5. But I'm going to do it here. I'm going to do the revenge game narrative. I'm going to bet Calvin Ridley over 61.5 yards. Yeah. Jags run man coverage, the 3rd highest rate in the league this season against man coverage. Right, Ridley leads the Titans in receiving yards. Target share with the Jags are 32nd DVOA defending the pass, 29th per PFF in coverage. He'll be matched up against Darby or Campbell, both of whom PFF has graded 80 or lower DBs. The last 5 wide receiver ones that have gone against the Jags are averaging 6 receptions, 97 yards per game. All of them went over 61.5. The one who didn't, Justin Jefferson somehow, who only had 48. I think that's more of a Sam Darnold thing. Ridley has gone over this total 3 of his last 5 games, averaging 71 yards per game. When we look at the side of this, how much fight is going to be in the Jags? Now, I'm not saying they're going to tank or not try, but the studs on their team, like what is the effort level going to be like? The fringe guys that need their next contract, that are trying to put stuff on, they're going to be busting their asses. But when we look at the Allen and Walker on the defensive line, when we look at Ingram, Etienne, what is those guys like? What is their effort level going to be? Because that whole staff is going to be gone. The GM is going to be gone. That is a true lame duck franchise right now. So I don't know what their fight's going to be, but I don't trust Will Levis to win with margin. I'm just going to play the Ridley revenge narrative at 61.5.
I'm going to keep an eye on the second-year receiver Washington. He had a career-high 6 catches, first 100-yard career game. And he is someone who had only had 9 catches in the first 3 games since Kirk got hurt. Maybe someone to keep an eye on as he gets more part of the season now, where you're looking for these younger guys. You're trying to see what you got with some of them. Probably someone I'm going to throw into some DFS stuff, but not really a thought on either side of the game here. We go the Raiders at the Bucks. How about Tampa? And I will say, you and I had some funny Baker Mayfield conversations through the years, and it was like he has had such a up and down career where for Cleveland had some good stretch. Then he'd have stretches where he was like winning with them, but there were times where he wasn't having to do a whole lot because they would just run the ball well. And then he played.
Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Finish your thing.
Yeah, then he played really poorly for Carolina. But the one thing that you hit on, it seemed like when he went to the Rams for a little while, he really learned from McVay, and he kind of matured, even being there for just a little bit. Man, he's been really good for Tampa. He really has. In even last week, where he struggled through a lot of the game, he went 11 of 12 in the fourth quarter in overtime, and he helped them where they really leaned on Irving late in the game. So Baker, Darnold, Geno Smith, we've seen some of these guys who, I think, what did Geno say? You wrote me off, but I didn't write back, or something along those lines. These are guys that may not have always had, a straight line to starting NFL quarterback. But man, there were a time when nobody would have thought Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, or Geno Smith would have been able to be starting 10, 12, 15 games in an NFL season for teams that are winning teams. And Baker's made plays. I think it's just being comfortable in the spot. He has nice weapons around him now. And he kind of feels like, okay, this is kind of my team now. I'm one of the leaders here. So they've quickly, in a few weeks, Eric, put themselves right back tied with the Falcons for a playoff spot. And then just look at the way the Sunday games are. The Falcons are a 5.5 point dog, and the Bucks are a 6.5 point favorite in this game. Whether or not they're going to cover or win or whatever, they're supposed to come out of this week a game ahead of the Falcons in the division.
So my thing is, I really think Baker had some off the field stuff that has to be accounted for his drop off after year one. That's
maturity issues. You mentioned some of these things.
That whole thing came out his dad.
A girl, and there was something too, right?
Well, that whole article came out his dad was stealing money from him.
And we found out, yep.
So, and I think that kind of was a waterfall stuff.
How could it not be? How could something like that not affect your play?
When your dad's your financial advisor.
And he's peeling you.
Stealing money from you.
I know.
He's suing. He stole $12 million.
Unbelievable.
Literally, that's just insane. So these guys have off the field stuff that could issue.
We don't know about, right?
In terms of this game, to me, this is a simple thing. I said this on my show too. I'm on Evans over the 68.5 yards. We'll be betting this. His over 90 yards and over 100 yards props as well. Evans is very vocal about keeping his 1,000-yard streak alive per season. In order for that to happen, he needs to average about 96 yards per game to get to that number. Since coming back from his injury, he's averaging 9 receptions, 93 yards per game. Raiders are 25th DVOA defending the pass, have the worst coverage grading per PFF. Raiders run man coverage at the 13th highest rate in the league. Evans supports a 28% target share versus man coverage. In terms of slide, look, I really don't know what I want to do here. Are the Raiders going to get a lot of quote unquote public money because they're in that standalone game against the Chiefs where, look, they should have won it. They're in a position to win it. There was some controversy at the end after almost winning the standalone game against the Chiefs. Last 7 years, they are 3-8-2 ATS after facing the Chiefs. When we look at Mayfield, he's 38% ATS as a favorite, 47% for Todd Bowles as a favorite. Bucks do run a lot of zone coverage. When we look at Brock Bowers, he's been an absolute animal against
fourth in the league in receiving yards right now, too. Overall.
Insane. And
with no quarterback.
Yep. And the Bucks are coming off an overtime game. Last 20 years, teams coming off an overtime game are 44% ATS. These are two teams that, with what happened last week, I was kind of looking to fade. I was hoping the Raiders would be playing one of those bottom half teams. It would be a little shorter number if they were the dog. I was looking to fade the Bucks after coming off this overtime game where Irving got hurt. Baker Mayfield got hurt. They had all these injuries, but they're playing against each other. I'm going to bet the Mike Evans prop.
Yeah.
Bet the adjusted over 100 and over 90. But in terms of side, this is just something I just don't want to get involved in.
Yeah, shout out to Crosby, who played every defensive snap for the 6th straight game, even in a year when he's banged up. He just wants to play. He likes being out there all the time, and you don't see that a whole lot with defensive guys in this day and age. Not really a strong opinion on the side for myself either. Let's move to the Browns at the Steelers. Pittsburgh, that was a really nice week for them with the way everything bounced. They beat up on the Bengals. The Ravens end up losing. So now Russell Wilson, who had a pick 6 on his first pass, bounces back, throws for 414 yards. This was one of his best games in a couple years. I mean, it was really good. A lot of it has to do with the Bengals defense. They're terrible, but this is why Mike Tomlin made the change from Fields, because Fields was winning, and Fields probably is a safer quarterback on the down to down, but you get a higher ceiling with Russ. Like, Fields hasn't shown us a lot of games like this where he throws the ball down the field as well. And he doesn't really have the track record to kind of reach back and get you a game like this. What was actually good for Russ in this game, he only had in the first half 3.2 air yards per attempt. So he wasn't being the stubborn, I'm only going to throw it down the field. He was taking what was given there. Like short stuff, a lot of the stuff was after the catch. So just being smart about it. And how about Arthur Smith right now? He's probably feeling pretty good as he sees Atlanta struggling. And then he and the Pittsburgh offense look much better now. I don't know what to do in this game, though. I mean, it's just funny from a very simple, logical standpoint. Cleveland beat this team straight up a few weeks ago, and they're a 7-point underdog.
Oh.
But Cleveland did just come off that tough loss Monday night. One of those games where I'm sure you probably have numbers for, like, when a team scores that many points or gets that many yards and that much yardage. Usually the next week you regress a ton, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, and another one I gave on my show, this is just the fade Tomlin spot here.
Has to be.
As a dog, as a favorite, 48%. Favorite of 3.5 or more, 46%. Favorite after a win, 41%. You mentioned Russell Wilson. How can we not fade him after the game that he had? That was the best game he has had since 2019.
Yep.
I know people are saying the Browns defense is down, but I think it's going to be able to limit Wilson in what he wants to do. He's a deep ball thrower. And I think the Browns on the outside are going to be able to limit Pickens and, Mike Williams. Garrett is a stud, and even though the Browns are down this year, the Steelers have the 23rd best pass blocking grade. How are they going to stop Myles Garrett, especially on the right side of the line? Jones 60th, PFF right tackle, McDermott 58th right guard. Wilson has struggled when facing pressure. Whitson as a dog getting 3.5 or more, 65.6% ATS. Now, one thing I like to do is, what would this line be if other stuff would have happened? When we look back at that Browns game against the Broncos, how did they not cover, let alone win that game? 2 pick sixes, and then the pick at the end of the game. They had 28 first downs, 552 yards of offense, over 250 more yards than the Broncos, almost 200 yards more passing. They had 84 offensive plays. They dominated the game, had some bad luck. If the Browns would have won this game, and knowing they just won a couple weeks ago, this line would be 3.5, 4. This line is a little bit overinflated.
Completely agree. Which is for Pittsburgh alone, it's too high. Coming off of the one game last week where they beat up on the Bengals,
and they have the Battle of Pennsylvania is on deck. It's just a good spot to be fading this team.
Pittsburgh. So we saw the Browns. We know they can score. Even again, put yourself in the situation of playing and watching this game.
And this is the game you want Jameis Winston as.
Absolutely. You're down 10 with the ball late in the game. That's how you have to hope. Can you be down 10 late in the game with a chance to get a garbage time touchdown?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love Jameis in that spot. Was that not the most Jameis game though ever last week? Just the 497, but the interceptions, the pick sixes, it's just incredible ceiling, but then the floor, and that's the Jameis experience. Just unbelievable up and down.
And I will say this: I know a lot of people are going to look to Jerry Jeudy, who had a phenomenal game last week against the Broncos. But when we kind of look at the matchup in man coverage, the guy to target is Cedric Tillman. He's going to get a little bit more of the love than Jeudy. So I'd go away from Jeudy here in terms of DFF stuff. I would use Cedric Tillman, who should be back. Keyword is should.
Next game, man, doesn't feel like that all that long ago where it was the Eagles at 2-2, and we're talking about Sirianni on the hot seat.
Yep.
And then they've rattled off 8 in a row. They're 10-2, and Sirianni is 44-19 overall as head coach for a guy who I still don't think is great, and he does some silly things, but you know what? What he's done, and I will give him credit for, it feels like, at least, I don't know exactly what's going on, it feels like he took a little bit of a step back and started to lean on the really good coordinators that he has. And that was something that we thought about when they made the changes this year, early in the year. And man, this defense with Fangio and the adjustments that they've been able to make, absolutely incredible. I mean, you just see what he's able to do. They have 4 of their last 5 games at home. This one feels like a little much, though, for them. I know they've been impressive. I know they've been playing really well. But Carolina, want to give them a lot of credit. Bryce Young playing good football and doing things that he was not doing in the first 20 games that he started, Eric, like looking a little more like Alabama, Bryce Young, whatever it was. Maybe it's playing, going back to the bench and being able to see some things on the field that, oh, you know what I can do? He just is looking confident. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback or a top 5 guy or anything, but a few weeks ago, this guy was done in my head. And now I'm looking at him, and I think his team is, and a lot of teams are, and going, this could be an NFL quarterback, or at least a guy that deserves a more time for us to really make the decision on him. So credit to him, because he's actually done it against solid teams too. Teams with good or decent defenses. It's not just been against the really bad teams. And he's taken his teams on game-winning drives, or he's put them in position, and then the kicker will miss the kick or something will happen. But he's been doing his job really, really well. I mean, if you look at all the way his games are graded and scored, basically his 3 best games in his career have come in the last 4 weeks. So figuring something out, Eric. And to me, I think the same thing we were saying with Cleveland a little while ago. Can this team be down by 17-20 and get you a garbage time score late? That's how you'd look if you're playing Carolina. This just feels like a ton.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when I look at this, I don't listen to many podcasts. One podcast I try to listen to when I can is that Chris Long podcast he does.
Yes.
And he's been very adamant that anytime these defenses are on the field for over 70 plays, it carries on a week or two. This Panthers defense was on the field for over 80 plays.
Now you got to play this Eagles team that's going to run, and wear you down.
It was an overtime game. So, like you're not getting the normal rest, more wear and tear. Are they going to be able to stop Barkley? When you look at it, their 31st worst run defense, allowing 166.8 yards per game on the ground. Then the flip side, okay, let's stack the box. How are you going to be able to stop Brown and Smith? When we look at it, they run a zone coverage at top 10 rate in the league. Both Brown and Smith are top 22 against zone coverage. Historically, Hurts does struggle to cover these big numbers. 3-9-1 in his career, 1-9 his last 10. You have Young against a Fangio defense. I know he just played.
No, and you're right. This is different.
And the Bucks, but
this is different.
Defense is a little bit of an uptick. Usually these,
especially if they can't run the ball like here, like this. This is the best
double digits. Like I would be looking to take the Panthers, but it's 12 and a half. This is kind of a dead number. I mean, if this was like 14 and a half, then I'd probably be betting the Panthers. But right now, I'm just not looking to bet it just because mainly that defense and that wear.
Eagles are playing so well, man. They are playing so well right now.
They do have, the Steelers on deck. That's a big game for them. So the situation says to take the Panthers. The spot
and some of the overtime and the stuff you're talking about with the extra plays on the field, and
says to fade the Panthers though. So
it's when you hem and haw, then you don't play, right? Like that's the thing that you and I at least preach to people. There's so many ways to play. There's so much action out there. Don't force things. Like if you're playing every day all the time, just don't force it. Wait for the games or the spots that you really feel the most confident in and play those ones. Because otherwise you're going to just once you go back and forth, just stop. Don't play it. Let's move to the next one, Eric. We've got the Dolphins hosting the Jets. Oh, that Jets game last week. That was the other one for me. Because the two games where if you played the Falcons and the Jets, definitely you were in the right spot last week. And there were just some key plays that flipped. For the Falcons, you had the 4 interceptions and the missed field goal, but really the Cousins was the bad one. Their defense played great. And then in this game, the Jets, there's a moment, they're up 21-7. Rodgers, they're driving, and Rodgers has Wilson wide open for a touchdown that's going to put them up 28-7. Misses it. Next play, pick 6. And then they don't score again the rest of the game. Just completely flipped the game. They were called for 8 penalties in the fourth quarter, the Jets. 8! I think that's the most that a team's been called for in one quarter. It's in years. I think it was like 8-10 years, something like that. Just insane. Their last possessions, turnover on downs, punt, end of half kneel, punt, fumble, big goal line stop, 3 and out, turnover on downs. Rodgers completed 2 of 14 passes over 10 air yards. 2 of 14. He's now gone 3 straight games under 200 yards passing, 34 straight games under 300 yards passing. He's got a Netflix documentary, though, coming out, Eric. So there's that. There's always that.
Not going to lie. Probably not going to watch it.
Me neither. And for the guy who's told people now all year long to focus on things on the field, he sure was not focused on the field all that often with the documentary and the McAfee show and everything. It's like, hey, look, I go on shows, I do stuff. I wouldn't tell other people not to do something that I was going to then go do. Man, that game was kind of a microcosm of their season. You had just some moments where it's like, yeah, this team's got some talent. They got some weapons, and they just don't have the leadership. Because as soon as they get punched in one moment, they crumble. They just sort of crumble. They fall apart. Man,
when we look at this game, to a 19-11 ATS against teams with a 500 winning percentage or less.
I saw that. That's unbelievable.
250 winning percentage or less. Heat won't be a factor here. It's only going to be in the mid-70s, so it's not going to be too hot in Miami. But I do kind of think there's a path here to the Jets covering. The Dolphins split time running man and zone coverage, but are 31st in the league running zone. And Garrett Wilson is one of the better wide receivers in the league facing a zone scheme. Jets run a man coverage here at the top 10 rate, and Waddle and Hill struggle against man coverage. But when we kind of look at it, the Dolphins' offense right now is Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. Now, I know the Jets are the 12th best team defending the tight end per DVOA, so I think they're going to be able to limit Jonnu Smith. They do struggle defending the run, but can Achane be counted on? He is a small guy, and we're getting to the end of the season. He's taken a lot of pounding. Divisional favorites laying 6.5 or more the last 20 years, 48% ATS. When their home favorites dips down to 46%. Since 2018, they're only 43% ATS, and they are 2-9 this year against the number. As crazy as it sounds, the Jets are still playing for their season. They're still technically somehow still alive in this playoff thing. Race, I think this is a kitchen sink game for them. I think they're going to throw all this stuff out against this Dolphins zone defense. Dolphins did lose 3 players in their secondary who exited the game against the Panthers early. Now, granted, we're recording this on Thursday. Friday practice reports is where it's at. Those guys have been limited. I'm going to fall on the sword here. To me, you have to play the Jets here plus the 6. So I'm on the Jets here plus the 6. I think this is their kitchen sink game. They're going to look to take a little bit more chances. I think it's going to be a big Garrett Wilson game.
Definitely not on the Dolphins side. The Dolphins last week, kind of getting to your point, they missed 20 tackles in that game. So if you're talking about them having to cover with margin, those 20 tackles they missed directly led to 132 additional yards for the Packers. Just giving up extra yardage. That's not what you want with a team that's a big favorite in a game like this. Yeah, those stats where they've lost 10 of their last 11 games against teams with winning records. That is 31st in the league in win percentage against teams with winning records during that stretch. That's like the worst that you possibly could be. But this is not a team with a winning record. I would be on the side with you too. I'm not sure if I'll get there because the Jets killed me again last week. And I do enjoy watching Rodgers squirm. That is sort of the problem is that I like when he's getting destroyed. So I do kind of enjoy watching them get beat up, but I just don't think the Dolphins are the team right now covering with margin. 5 more games to hit on in week 14, Eric. We have Seattle at Arizona. This is a huge game for the division. Arizona, a 2.5-point favorite in this game. They're at home. They got really kind of embarrassed a couple weeks ago against Seattle. They held them to just 6 points in that game. And last week, the Vikings come back in a game where Arizona had a big lead early in that game. They moved the ball well in between the 20s, but they just couldn't seal the deal in the red zone. Dude, you talked about McBride, though. He has been incredible. He's had 12 catches in both of the last 2 weeks, which is a record for the Cardinals, the 2 high single-game receptions by a tight end. They blew a 13-point lead, though, and just 2 weeks ago, they had a real chance to put a stranglehold on the division, and then they lost to Seattle, and then they lost to Minnesota, and Seattle's flipped and won 2 games and been really good, and the Rams kind of quietly have kept themselves in the mix. So this is a huge game for the NFC West. Any strong opinion, Cardinals, Seahawks?
I gave this one out on my show. I'm on the Cardinals here, minus the 2.5.
Anything under 3, you're okay?
Buying low, selling high, what it's all about. Seahawks really overvalued right now. Won 3 straight, have covered three straight games, and won 3 straight games, leading the NFC West. People are talking about them about a possible dark horse to make a run to the Super Bowl. I like the travel spot as well. They played home in Seattle against the Cardinals, had to travel West Coast to play the Jets, travel back to Seattle, now travel down to Arizona. Travel spot is perfect. Murray, when you look at his splits, has performed better at home this year than the road. I think the Cards are going to be able to move the ball on the ground. 6 DVOA rushing team in the league. PFF has them graded as the 9th best rushing attack, and the Seahawks are the 21st worst team defending the run. This is going to take pressure off of Murray. It's going to open up stuff in the passing attack for him. Seattle, the middle of the road, 16th DVOA defending the tight end possession. McBride had 13 receptions, 133 yards against them last time. He's going to be able to do good against this man coverage that Seattle likes to run, where McBride has been a beast. Cardinals per DVOA have the 13th best pass defense in the league, 12th best DVOA defending. 13th best defense, 12th best passing defense, 9th best defending wide receiver ones. Held DK Metcalf to 4 receptions, 459 yards. And when you look at Metcalf against the Gannon defense in the history, those guys have been matched up 6 targets, 3 receptions, 35 yards per game. Those are their average. I think they're going to be able to limit Metcalf, and by doing that, limit what Geno Smith is able to do. Cardinals 11th DVOA defending the run, have limited Walker to 16 for 41 last game. And when you look at Walker against the Gannon defense, he's only averaging 60 yards a game. More importantly, 3.6 yards a carry. If he's getting less than 4, they're constantly going to be behind the change. I think Seattle's going to have a hard time moving the ball. When we look back at the Cardinals game against the Vikings, how did they not win? 77 offensive plays, more total yards, more passing yards, 100 more rushing yards, 10 more minutes of time possession. Literally should have won the game. Vikings were able to get that last second field goal to win it. If the Cards win that game, what is this line? 4, 3.5. So I think there's a little bit value on the Cards because the Cards lost that game. And Seattle came back to win that game against the Jets. I mean, they had Leonard Williams, 90-yard pick 6. There's just random stuff. The Jets lost. If the Jets won that game, Cards win. This line's going to be close to 4.
They had the worst single game performance on kickoffs and kick returns in 6,641 regular season and postseason games since 2000. And even with that pick 6 they got on kickoffs and kickoff returns, they were miserable. Their special teams is awful. They have to get better because in close games, that's absolutely going to cost them. The one thing I thought was good too last week though for them, the Leonard Williams and Geno Smith got to just come back on the Jets. Your former players got to come back and stick it to you a little bit for a Jets team that went all in on Rodgers. But this is absolutely the Cardinals' spot here. One stat I thought was at least worth mentioning: the Seahawks have reached 7+ wins for the 15th straight season since 2010. Only the Steelers, 21, and Saints, who have 18 and haven't reached 7 this year and may not, have longer active streaks of reaching 7+ wins. So, a team that hasn't had any of those really, really, really bad years in a while, through a lot of the Pete Carroll years with Russ and now into Geno Smith. Again, a guy who we didn't know if he could be a starting quarterback for a full season for a team. And he showed us we don't know what his ceiling is, but his floor has been at least a guy that'll win you 7 games. So shout out to him and just rejuvenating his career. Let's get to the last couple here, Eric. Bills at the Rams. Bills come off of big performance. We all saw them in the snow game, and Josh Allen jumped up to the MVP favorite in that game. He had that incredible play where he had a passing touchdown to himself, but didn't catch the pass. It's just an insane statistic. 3rd player in Super Bowl era to score a receiving touchdown in a game when they didn't have a reception. And Buffalo's been good. They've scored 30+ points for the 6th straight game. Longest streak this season, tied for the longest streak in franchise history. Rams come off a game where they struggled early in the first half. They did find a groove, though. They scored touchdowns on 3 of the final 4 possessions. They ran the ball well with Kyron Williams, and then Stafford made some big plays because the key for them when they're running, they can use the play action, which they did really, really well. So, again, the spot here says this is a Rams spot at home, right? Everybody's talking about the Bills. They are jumping up week in, week out because Kansas City keeps looking flat when they win. Baltimore keeps losing. And so in the AFC, the Bills are the team that everyone's talking about and playing really well right now. I think this will be a little closer game, though. I could see this being a game within a field goal. I could absolutely see the Rams win this game. If so, did you play the Rams side as the home dog here, Eric, or are you on the Bills as the hot AFC team right now?
No, I took the Rams here. I got it at 4.5. The Bills.
Yeah, because it's moved like a full point now. It was at 4.5 before. It's down to depending on where you look, you could get it anywhere in that range from somewhere from 4.5 if you got it earlier to down to 3.5 now.
Bills locked up the division, playing on a short week, have the game against the Lions on deck. Bills run zone coverage at the 8th highest rate in the league. Stafford has done well this year against zone coverage. So has Cup, PFF graded 16th best wide receiver against zone coverage. Nakua is the 4th best player against zone coverage. So I think they're going to have success being able to throw the ball. Rams offensive line is starting to get healthier, starting to look better. Bills do have some issues on the interior of their offensive line. I think Verse is going to be able to get to Allen. PFF has the Bills as the 6th worst run defense. I think the Rams will be able to move the ball here. This is just one of those games that kind of this is more of a spot play for me, just because I think this is the highest the Bills have been in the market coming off that win against Kansas City and the standalone game against the 49ers. Look at spot, possible Super Bowl preview against the Lions on deck. So I'll look to fade him here.
I think I got to look on this. I'm pretty sure I saw Jared Verse doing some wicked stuff out there on social media, which was pretty impressive. It's like doing a little singing and dancing. Love that. Completely agree with you on the spot, though. It just at over the field goal, I think you want to take the Rams here. This could be a close game that the Bills still get the job done. But as you pointed out, the Bills now, they still have plenty to play for in the AFC. They're trying to get the 1 seed. They definitely want that. But they now know they've got themselves plenty of wiggle room because the division's locked up. They want to stay healthy. So I wouldn't be shocked to see this be a really close game. The Rams have more to play for right now. Yep. The Rams are in the middle of this tight
season. This is their season.
They can't get behind because they know one of the teams in front of like Arizona, Seattle is going to pick up a game on them in that game. So they have to keep winning here. I think the Rams spot is the right spot to be. We go to the Bears at the 49ers. Well, we got the McCaffrey under prop for the year. That was definitely on the under rushing yards.
My bet didn't hit because
1,100
funded because he didn't play the first game.
Oh, he didn't play the first game. Okay,
yeah.
There you go. So we talked about the 49ers the last couple of years as just one of those teams where they were very good. Things were going well for them. But when you get the opportunity and you get the chances, you have to try to capitalize one of those times. And they have not. And now McCaffrey's out, Achilles. Last week, just a brutal game, 3rd straight loss. They actually got into Bills territory on their first 5 drives, but they only scored 3 points. Run defense has been really bad. That's been a thing quietly. Even when they've been good, they haven't been very good against the run because they've gotten up in games. So a lot of times teams haven't been able to run the ball against them. But when they've played teams that have been competitive with them, they've had a tougher time stopping the run. And that happened again last week. I think it was the 2nd week in a row where they gave up 150 yards or more rushing. Buffalo ran for 5.8 yards per carry. Can the Bears do that? Can the Bears take advantage? Should the 49ers be favored by more than a field goal really against anyone right now with a lot of the issues that they're dealing with and the injuries that they're dealing with? Any thoughts on this game, Bears at 49ers? This was another one that moved a little bit. This was about 4.
This was
right?
6.5.
6.5 earlier in the week. And then it was 4.5 just not even 24 hours ago.
Weird fact, Matt Eberflus, the
fired coach bump here is what everyone's going for, right?
Best coach ATS to ever be fired midseason.
Okay. That is a weird one.
More film on Williams. Williams has looked good since Jones has taken over as the OC, but they're starting to get more film on him. There's going to be 3 games of film on him now. The Lions did have some issues defensively. If that game would have been 10, what would this line would have been at, even with the Eberflus firing? Tons of injuries on the 49ers. We don't know what's going on with Trent Williams. Tragic situation with him. Is he going to play or not going to play? Because when he does play, this 49ers team, offense is a lot better. When he's not there, definitely takes a step backwards. Are the Bears going to be this week's public dog? If this line was 3, I would totally be on the 49ers here, even with all their injuries, just because I think it's moved too much. That would have been a 3.5-point move. Film out. Teams after facing the Lions, 2-9 this season and 36% ATS the last 3 seasons. Bears struggle against the run. I know people are going to say that there's no McCaffrey back there. There's no Mason. Look, I feel that if I was in shape in a Shanahan running scheme, I would have a good game against this Bears rushing defense. What's going on with Purdy's shoulder? We really don't know. This could be something that lingers because these shoulder injuries with quarterbacks, we've seen them not come back. However, I just feel this number is way too high, but it's at 3.5. I don't want to take the 49ers 3.5. But if this does get to 3, I'm probably going to be on the 49ers just because I feel this number is
There's so much value. That's way too much just from a principle standpoint. You have
and I kind of feel the Bears are going to be this week's,
because everybody's doing the fired coach bump, and because
standalone game when how most people are going to look at it, standalone game, Bears were in a position to win or even force overtime. Coach didn't take a timeout. What they're not going to realize is how much the Lions were dominating that game. If Gibbs doesn't fumble in the second quarter, that's going to bleed probably a 20-point loss by the Bears. I think this number is a little bit down. But if it gets to 3, or if I can get plus money on the 49ers during in-game betting, I'll look to do it. But right now, I'm not going to do anything.
Sunday Night Football, Chargers at the Chiefs. This is a weird game for me because the Chiefs, no doubt about it, should have lost a couple more games this year. They've won a few. They've gotten and not even things that have happened, like stuff that you can't miss field goals. The blocked field goal, maybe we give them a little bit of credit for, but again, last week, 5 red zone trips, only 1 touchdown out of those. They feel kind of like a team that's like trying to figure some things out right now too, which isn't bad because they have some leeway. Can they get Worthy and Hopkins and those guys involved? The offensive line, though, they're starting to have some issues. They're going to have a new starter at left tackle. They benched their starter last week. The rookie who began the season starting at left tackle was also benched earlier in the year. So I'm not in love with what I've seen recently from the Chiefs. So I'd be looking to play against them. The problem is, Eric, I kind of feel the same way about what the Chargers have been doing recently, because the last week game, the Chargers only had 180 yards, and there's no way they should have won that game. But that was because they had the 4 interceptions from Cousins. He was miserable in that game. And even a couple weeks ago against the Bengals, Chargers probably shouldn't have won that game after the Bengals came all the way back and then couldn't score. They got beat up by Baltimore in the middle. Like, I don't know how good the Chargers are overall, but this spot probably says more Chargers than Chiefs just because, again, I'm taking the dog in this situation. I'm not excited to do it because I wanted to fade the Chargers this week myself, right? Like you were kind of saying about the other game. I would be looking to fade both of these teams if they weren't playing each other.
I mean, at Mahomes laying anything more than 3 is an auto fade for me. I'm just going to put it in and just roll with it. 47% ATS is a favorite, 3.5 or more, 46%. I know the big story is the run game of the Chargers struggling without Dobbins. When you look at it, both Edwards and Vidal averaged over 5 yards of carry. I love Vidal there. Vidal, he looked explosive, looked a lot better. I think the Chargers are actually going to lean on him a little bit more. Don't know what's going on with Ladd McConkey, who exited the game with an injury. I think he's going to be back. This is going to help because the passing game basically is him. When you look at the Herbert splits with or without him on the field, definitely a significant drop. Chargers are a top 10 unit in the league defensively. I think they're going to be able to limit Mahomes. I know they do struggle in the running game when they place a big physical back, but we don't really know what we're going to get from Pacheco. He didn't look that explosive in the game against the Raiders last week. Hunt, he's been slowing down, obviously showing his age and the wear and tear. Chiefs offensive line, you mentioned it, has been a nightmare. Chargers, I think, are going to be able to get there against Mahomes. And Harbaugh, as a dog, is just a covering favorite. I'm going to be on the Chargers here plus the 4 points.
Yeah, I'll probably end up, I'm in one of those picks pools where I'm in an okay year, actually tied for the top of the pool in the division. I'll pull up my stats in just a sec. So it's like one of those where all these games are the tricky games for me are the ones as a gambler where I'm like, I would stay away from this game, but I have to make a pick, right? So those are the ones where I get frustrated as a gambler. But right now, a 108 and 85. So that's pretty good against the spread. I'm like right up towards the top, and you have to pick every single game. So been solid so far. Let's see if we can close out the year and finish in the money. Eric, let's get to the final game. Monday Night Football. We got the Bengals at the Cowboys, 2 teams that probably didn't think they'd be sitting in this position a few months ago with Dak, with Joe Burrow, two teams that were hoping to be in the playoffs and be like Super Bowl contenders, but stuff has happened. I mean, for the Bengals, they have one of the worst defenses we've seen in a while. They set the record for the most losses in a season in games when they've scored 33 points 4 times. It was the 6th time this year they've allowed 34 or more points on defense. They allowed the Steelers to score on 5 straight first half drives. Just insane. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in touchdown passes and passing yards. He has 30 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. There have been 5 games this year where he's gone 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they've lost. It's happened 3 times in a row. That's the most ever in any season for a quarterback. Like, you're not supposed to lose games when your quarterback's that good and your offense is that good and you're scoring that many points, but their defense is just that bad, Eric. That's what's difficult about backing them in any situation by margin on the road. You know, Dallas has kind of sneakily played a little bit better the last couple weeks. They were able to run the ball more last week. Why won't they be able to run the ball against the Bengals at home? Rush has looked a little more competent, like you would expect for a player who has gotten a few more reps. A guy who wasn't playing, now he's gotten a little more opportunity. He's looked more competent. The only problem I have with this is all of the Dallas problems have been at home. They've been miserable at home. There's all those, they've been down by 20 points and all the different home streaks for the most part. But I don't know how I could play the Bengals where at a 5+ point favorite on the road here. Any thoughts on this last game, Monday Night Football?
So I talked about this on my show. I really don't think people understand how good of a season Burrow is having.
Incredible.
3,337 yards leading the league. 30 TDs also leading the league. Only 5 INTs. The Bengals are 4-8. 2 games up from having the worst record in the league. There's been 20 games this year where a quarterback has thrown for 300 yards and have had 3 TDs. Burrow has had 5 of them, and in those games, the Bengals are 5-0.
Or 0-5. Yeah, they've lost all of them. Right?
This is the mind-blowing one. There has been 7 times a quarterback through 12 games has gone to the 30 TD mark. 7 times. Add up all those losses from those 7 quarterbacks. Guess how many total losses they have?
Probably not 8.
They have 9.
Oh, there we go.
They have 9.
That's so
Burrow
good.
has 8.
That's so good.
How bad this defense has.
Well, he's number 1 graded quarterback by PFF this year.
It's just brutal. Like, he should be in the MVP
conversations, no doubt about it.
They're not. What's going on with Lamb? Exited the Thanksgiving Day game early. Bengals are pretty simple with who to target in DFS. When it is a man team, you target Chase. Zone team, you target Higgins. This is a zone coverage team. So look to target Higgins in your DFS lineup, maybe do some Higgins props. But honestly, which team do you trust here? You know what I mean? Like, the Cowboys have been an absolute train wreck. They're coming off a game against the Giants where, look, Locke made some boneheaded decisions that led to them covering. There was that pick 6. There was that fumble. And Locke was having success moving the ball, literally just finding out the day before they was going to play. You have the Bengals defense. I just read all these stats. They're just absolutely terrible.
How do you trust them at all?
I want,
nothing to do with this game.
I'm going to play some Higgins props.
Nothing.
Put him in DFS. But in terms of betting wise, like, why?
No, none. If you look for some action, though, this week, check out our friends over at Boom Fantasy. Eric, what's the promo code for anyone who wants to sign up for Boom Fantasy and use our promo code?
ETOFT21.
ETOF21. Check that out on Boom Fantasy. I've had a couple nice weeks there putting a few props together. Eric, last time we did one a couple weeks ago, I think we both hit on that one as well. So thanks so much, buddy, for being flexible again with my schedule this week. I appreciate you helping out. I know we got to both run right now, but we will be back on Sunday for NFL Betting Blitz, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Make sure to check us out. Come hang out with us on Eric's YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And check out the socials. Give us a follow all over the place. I've been popping up more on Blue Sky. It's me, Gino B, over there. Eric's also over there. Same following ETOF21 give him a follow on over there. Erik, anything else to mention before we get out of here, buddy?
No, good luck, everyone, on your bets, and hopefully you're going to make some money.
Talk to you all again on Sunday. If you're listening on the podcast, plenty more to come. If you're watching on YouTube, if you can, hit the subscribe below, throw a like up, and let us know if you have any best bets for the week or any games or props that you're looking at. Maybe you're waiting for some numbers, you're waiting for a particular line to come on out. We'd love to hear from you.